Welcome to the Fantasy Audiobook. Everyone. God-level talent. All items dropped. Chapter 1. The 18th year of the New World Calendar. Dragon Kingdom. In the Novice District on the outskirts of Yongning City. Call the troops, the generals, whoever you call, it's you. Wei Kai pointed at a little white rabbit with red eyes with his left hand, and slowly raised the old sword in his right hand. The little white rabbit is the weakest monster in the novice area. Its only attack method is to bite, but you can dodge it with a little dodge. For beginners, the little white rabbit is the best mob. It can be used to familiarize yourself with skills and fighting methods, as well as practice positioning and dodging. The most important thing is that its number is almost endless. As long as you come to the suburbs, you can find them everywhere, and they will not take the initiative to attack. This kind of monster is most suitable for novices like Wei Kai who have just changed jobs. When it comes to changing jobs, Wei Kai is a bit dumbfounded. A month ago, he traveled to this world and changed from a freshman about to start school to a high school student about to graduate. Except for his age and appearance, everything else has changed. The biggest change is, of course, the world. 18 years ago, the game came to Blue Star and merged with reality, ushering in an era of job transfer for all people. Subsequently, the entire world underwent tremendous changes. Except for big cities with a population of more than 1 million, the remaining wilderness and suburbs have been completely occupied by beasts, monsters, ghosts and other strange beasts. Human beings can only huddle in big cities, lingering and living in panic. However, there is always a way out. While alien beasts are rampant, humans have also begun an era of job transfer for all, and job transfers in various games have become a reality. Countless people have joined in, changing their professions to become warriors, mages, assassins, shooters, etc., and joining the army against wild beasts. Over the past 18 years, through the exploration of countless predecessors and martyrs, a systematic understanding of job transfer has gradually been formed. All job transfers can basically be divided into three major categories: combat, auxiliary, and daily life. As long as they can cause damage, professions with combat skills, such as warriors, mages, assassins, etc., can be regarded as combat professions. The auxiliary category is also very simple. As long as the occupation has gain-type skills, it can be regarded as auxiliary. Finally, there are life-type professions. They basically have no combat effectiveness and cannot provide auxiliary abilities during combat. Their biggest role is to provide logistical supplies for combat and auxiliary professions, such as food, alchemy props, equipment, etc. Although life occupations cannot be used on the battlefield, their importance is no less important than the other two major occupations. Li Chengyuan, the god of war of the Dragon Kingdom, said it well: there are no rubbish professions, only rubbish career changers. Just half an hour ago, the head teacher, Lao Zhang, also used these words to comfort the students in the class. At the graduation and job transfer ceremony half an hour ago, class 1514 had very poor results. There are 50 people in the class, but only 3 have successfully transferred to combat professions, 7 have transferred to auxiliary professions, and the remaining 40 people, all are living professions. Wei Kai happened to be one of those 3 and became a glorious warrior. For those who are talented or wealthy, the profession of warrior has many branches that can be transformed into and has huge potential. Once it is truly formed, it will definitely be one of the top 3 professions among all professions. It's both meaty and powerful, enough to push through everything and create air in seconds. But for people with no money or mediocre talents, it is an ordinary rubbish career. Oh, right, everyone will receive a talent after changing jobs. In most cases, the first talent you get will be related to your profession, that is, warriors get strength talents, mages get magic talents. Wei Kai also received his own talent, but this talent was a bit strange. Because it has nothing to do with any profession. I have never even heard of such a talent. It's called Full Item Drop. Name: Wei Kai. Occupation: Warrior. Level: 1. Strength: 5. Agility: 4. Magic: 1. Spirit: 3. Constitution: 6. Professional skills: upward pick, downward cut. Talent: all items dropped. Any unit killed by you will drop all the items that can be dropped. This talent description is simple and easy to understand, and you can understand it at a glance. But after Wei Kai saw it, he was still a little confused. All items dropped. It means that as long as I kill the monster, all the items that can be dropped by it will explode at once. The era of universal job transfer has been open for 18 years, and the official has a detailed list of drops for most monsters. Most monsters will drop several items after being killed. Even the little white rabbit in front of me will lose a few pieces of rabbit meat, rabbit legs, and so on. Those powerful regional bosses, and even mythical beasts, have thousands of drops. If they could all be released at once, wouldn't it be a god-level talent? Thinking of this, Wei Kai took 3 deep breaths before he calmed down. This was his first time fighting monsters after changing his profession. He was not only adapting to his warrior profession, but also testing his newly acquired talents. Is it really possible to have full item drops? Top pick. Wei Kai raised his sword with both hands and made a half-moon slash. The old sword in his hand quickly passed by the little white rabbit's leg. Missed. The first move caused a miss, and Wei Kai rolled his eyes a little. Although he had long expected this matter, when it actually happened to him, he was still a little speechless. Although the little white rabbit is weak and has little attack power, it is good at speed and dodge. Newbies who have just changed jobs need at least 10 minutes to adapt to it before they can cause effective damage to it. Missing the first hit is too common. The melee professions are pretty good. Most of the novice mages and shooters will cry because of their stupidity when they face the little white rabbit for the first time. Cut down. A flat A. A flat A. Top pick. -1. Wei Kai did not give up, and made another move, only to miss one after another, and was even bitten by a rabbit in the middle. That's right, that -1 was bitten out by the little white rabbit. In the process of his successive moves, he was a little angry and careless, so he didn't dodge. As a result, he was bitten hard by the little white rabbit. After fussing for a long time, I didn't hurt the little white rabbit at all, but was bitten by the rabbit. Wei Kai almost cried because of his stupidity. But fortunately, the damage of the little white rabbit is very low, only a little damage in one bite. This is just drizzle for a warrior with a full 210 points of health. Come again. The performance just now was a bit poor, but Wei Kai did not give up, because he knew that this is how every combat professional came to be. How can any newcomer not be tortured to tears by the little white rabbit? Even the god of war of the Dragon Kingdom who left a famous saying was played by rabbit in his novice days, and was even almost killed. But what I met was the Rabbit King. Top pick. A flat A. A flat A. Cut down. -5. Hit. After adapting for nearly 3 minutes, Wei Kai finally hit the little white rabbit hard, successfully inflicting -5 damage on its head. For the little white rabbit who was only at level 1, this was a huge amount of damage, enough to take away most of its life. With one strike of the sword, the little white rabbit's blood volume was reduced by 2/3, and he was about to be killed. Seeing this, Wei Kai immediately struck while the iron was hot and made another flat ace. This time, the little white rabbit did not dodge and was hit again. A -2 appeared on his head, and then he fell to the ground with a grunt. Bang! The next moment, the body of the little white rabbit disappeared, and then several rays of light emerged from the place where the body disappeared. Exploded. Seeing this scene, Wei Kai's eyes suddenly widened and his breathing stagnated. As a novice monster, the drops of the little white rabbit are often very stingy. In most cases, there will be no drops when killed, but only a little experience point and a copper coin. Only when you are very lucky will you drop a piece of rabbit meat or leg. However, the drops in front of me are far more than that. Rabbit meat. The rabbit meat dropped by the little white rabbit can be used as a cooking ingredient. Rabbit legs. The rabbit legs dropped by the little white rabbit can be used as cooking ingredients. Rabbit head. The rabbit head dropped by the little white rabbit can be used as a cooking ingredient. Wei Kai glanced over and saw 3 ingredients on the little white rabbit. This is to explode all the flesh from the monster. If that's not enough, there is also a cookbook. Spicy rabbit meat recipe. After learning, you can learn to cook spicy rabbit meat. The specific dishes will be different according to the ingredients used. Spicy rabbit meat. A precious dish that can randomly increase some attributes after eating it can only be eaten once a day. The importance of attribute points is self-evident. Even if it is random and can only increase a little bit every day, it will be a huge improvement over time. In addition, there is an old dagger and the same medicinal materials. Hemostatic grass. The most common medicinal material, it can restore 20 points of blood volume after taking it. The last thing is a strange whiteboard item. Elixir crumbs. There is only a 4-character name without any description. Wei Kai only glanced at it and ignored it. Because, he is already crazy with joy. It's true. The description of talent is true. All items dropped. As long as there are items that can be dropped, they all exploded. Wei Kai looked excited and clenched his fists tightly, as if he was holding the whole world in his hands. When someone kills a little white rabbit, in addition to the basic experience points and copper coins, he is very lucky to be able to drop a piece of rabbit meat. The little white rabbit he killed had 3 kinds of ingredients, and it also had a very precious recipe. This is the lifeblood of a professional chef. Without recipes, the dishes produced by a chef can only be ordinary food. Only by following recipes can you make food that can increase attributes or have special buffs. If this cookbook was sold at a trading house, it would be worth at least 100,000 gold coins. 100,000 gold coins is 100,000 yuan, enough for an ordinary family of 3 to live happily for 5 years. The most outrageous thing is that this little white rabbit not only revealed ingredients and recipes but also medicinal materials. This is also a rare material. The wilderness of this world has long been occupied by powerful alien beasts. If you want to collect medicinal materials, you have to go deep into the wild. The more likely a place is to produce precious medicinal materials, the more dangerous it is. In some places, even third-level professionals may die. Although styptic grass is the most common medicinal material, it is worth about 100 yuan. Apart from these, what surprised Wei Kai the most was the last item. Elixir crumbs. Could it be that if these scraps are kneaded together, they will turn into a magical elixir? However, how many scraps are needed to synthesize an elixir? There are no instructions on the items, so I'm afraid you'll have to figure it out on your own. Luckily I have the talent. Wei Kai raised the corners of his mouth slightly and smiled evilly. Sorry, I don't have any hair again. I've killed 50 rabbits without even losing a piece of meat. At this moment, a curse suddenly came from not far away, followed by several unpleasant complaints. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment, then turned around and saw that the person coming was a tall and powerful middle-aged man. I can't see the level or profession, but judging from the equipment on the opponent, he should also be a warrior. What are you looking at? After discovering that Wei Kai was observing him, the man suddenly became angry and said angrily, looking at the wretched look on your face, I'm afraid you're not a rookie who can't even beat a rabbit, right? This is the lowest level novice area. Most of the people who come here are novices who have just changed jobs, because there is only one kind of monster, rabbit, and killing monsters only requires a little experience point and a copper coin. After the level rises, if you kill rabbits again, you will lose even the most basic experience points and a copper coin. High-level career changers basically come here with only one purpose, to get rabbit meat. However, the explosion rate of the little white rabbit is extremely low, and the probability of dropping items is about the same as winning the jackpot. The middle-aged man in front of me should be here to hunt rabbit meat. But his luck doesn't look very good. From his complaints, it seems that he killed 50 rabbits and nothing came out. But that's normal. Although the other party was complaining, he did not stop killing monsters. For him, this kind of little white rabbit with only 7 points of health is just a matter of cutting it one by one. Facing the other party's ridicule, Wei Kai didn't care and could even smile lightly. The other party killed 50 rabbits and couldn't explode anything, but he could explode them all over the ground casually. The two of them were no longer on the same level. With such a gap, what's there to be angry about? However, with this guy here, I can't stay here. What drops after killing monsters can be seen by everyone. He doesn't want to expose his talent, nor does he want to cause trouble for himself. Before it develops, the most important thing is to keep a low profile. After thinking about it, Wei Kai turned around and left. 10 minutes later, he found a deserted place in the distance and started painting the white rabbit again. After gaining experience with the first monster, the next battle became very smooth. The weak little white rabbit could basically not survive 3 moves in his hands. If you are hit by the down cut skill, you can even kill him with 1 hit. Slowly, after he killed the 20th little white rabbit, a golden light finally flashed on his body. Upgraded. Wei Kai took a long breath. 20 little white rabbits is not difficult to say, but it is not easy to say that it is simple. For novices who have just changed jobs, if they can complete it within half an hour to an hour, they are considered qualified. Wei Kai glanced at the time and saw that he had used up 49 minutes. Excluding the 10 minutes spent searching for a new leveling place, the real time spent was only 39 minutes. The results are considered qualified. If Wei Kai's combat ability is only up to standard, then his explosion rate is incredible. 20 rabbit legs, 20 pieces of rabbit meat, 20 rabbit heads, 20 styptic herbs, 2 cookbooks. There are also 20 elixir fragments. Except for the fact that the recipe was really rare and not every rabbit exploded, everything else exploded 20 times. This explosion rate, if others saw it, they would think he had fired it. Although his name is Wei Kai, he is really not Kai. With so many things, the novice backpack, which has only 100 slots, is so full that it can no longer fit. The most precious recipe, of course, must be kept in the backpack. 20 elixir fragments don't look ordinary, so putting them in a backpack is the best choice. After thinking about it, Wei Kai simply took out 2 pieces of rabbit meat and held them in his hands. Although the explosion rate of this thing is extremely low, it can still explode. When people see it, they will only think that he is the European emperor. It's time to go back. Wei Kai weighed the rabbit meat in his hand. Anyway, it's worth the trip. Not only has the level been upgraded to level 2, but he has also gained a proficient understanding of the warrior's skills and attack methods. The most important thing is the things that came out. Those 2 cookbooks alone can be sold for 200,000 gold coins. With this money, he can buy himself a good set of equipment. There is a huge difference between equipped warriors and unequipped warriors. Only a warrior with the best equipment can be both powerful and powerful. A warrior without good equipment is a human shield responsible for being beaten. You can only put on the thickest armor and get the hardest beating. Just like killing the rabbit before, if he had money, he could buy an exquisite long sword. That way, even if you are only at level 1, you can still do 1 sword and 1 sword. Instead of being like him, who could only kill a rabbit with a worn-out long sword in 2 blows. Although the difference between 1 sword and 1 sword and 2 swords and 1 sword may not seem big, but in terms of leveling efficiency, it's a huge difference. What's more, those rich people can wear a good set of equipment and challenge more powerful monsters. Most people start with level 5 monsters, and there is no need for level 1 to kill rabbits. But starting from today, everything is different. Wei Kai's eyes were firm and he clenched his fist tightly. With this, all item drop, talent, he will be able to have as many top quality equipment and rare materials as he wants in the future. As long as he works hard to kill monsters, one day, he will be on top of the world. Boo-hoo. On the way back, Wei Kai blew his whistle leisurely. As I walked, I returned to the place where I killed the first white rabbit. When I took a closer look, I discovered that the uncle who killed the rabbit was still here. The uncle was still cursing. Silly rabbit, can't you burst out a piece of meat for me? I've been killing them for a long time, but there have to be 300 of them, right? There aren't even a single rabbit hair. Is this reasonable? I don't know which idiot designed this game. After the monster died, there wasn't even a corpse. I was afraid that someone would pick it up. Otherwise, I can just pick one up and go back to do my job. Oh. Blow it up. Why don't you blow it up for me? Enough. Upon hearing this, Wei Kai immediately changed his hand and moved the rabbit meat to the other side of his body, so as not to let the other party see it. Unexpectedly, his action was still 1 step forward, and the other party had already seen this scene. You're a newbie, you actually got rabbit meat. The middle-aged uncle looked surprised. He didn't expect the newcomer in front of him to be so lucky. In just over half an hour, you can get rabbit meat, and there are still 2 pieces. Just lucky. Wei Kai quickly explained. How about selling it to me? The uncle suddenly put away his displeasure and said seriously, I really need a few pieces of rabbit meat. I can buy it from you directly with gold coins. Ah, that's okay too. Wei Kai hesitated for a moment, but agreed. His backpack was already so full of rabbit meat that it couldn't be stuffed anymore. As long as you give money and sell it to the other party for 2 yuan, it's not a big deal. Seeing as you are a newbie, old, I won't bully you either. The middle-aged uncle was stunned for a moment, and then said bluntly, I will buy your rabbit meat at twice the market price, 10 gold coins apiece, and you will get 2 pieces in total. I will give you 20 gold coins. Ah, okay. Wei Kai didn't expect the other party to be so forthcoming and even gave him an extra 10 gold coins. This deal is quite a bargain. After a while, the two parties completed the transaction. There were also 20 more gold coins in Wei Kai's backpack. This is a lot of money. Enough to buy several pieces of novice equipment. Under normal circumstances, no one would pay such an expensive price to buy a few pieces of rabbit meat. Thinking of this, he couldn't help but be a little curious. Why did this grumpy uncle come here to hunt rabbit meat? After hunting for a long time, he couldn't catch rabbit meat, and why was he willing to buy it from him so generously? You must know that in the market, you can buy better meat at this price. Uncle, boy, he was about to ask, but the other party also wanted to say something, and their words suddenly collided. The uncle was stunned for a moment, then smiled openly and said, Boy, I had a bad temper before, I'm sorry. Ah, operator, oh operator. It's okay, I don't care either. When Wei Kai saw this, he waved his hand quickly, and then took the opportunity to ask, Uncle, you are of such a high level, why do you still come to hunt rabbit meat? He couldn't see the opponent's level, but judging from the opponent's skill, he was at least level 20 or above. For such a high-level job changer to come to the novice area to kill novice monsters, it feels a bit like using a cannon to kill mosquitoes. Well, actually it's to cook for my daughter. The uncle smiled slightly and said with happiness on his face, My daughter likes to eat spicy rabbit meat the most. I just changed my job back then, and I found rabbit meat after swiping 3 rabbits. I took it home and had a delicious meal of spicy rabbit meat at night. Since then, my daughter has fallen in love with it. It's a pity that more than 10 years have passed, and I haven't found the recipe for spicy rabbit meat. The popularity of this thing is incredible. I don't know who designed it. As he talked, the uncle couldn't help but complain. Hearing this, Wei Kai suddenly smiled in his heart. Spicy rabbit recipe. I finished 2 copies in half an hour. Oh, right. The grumpy uncle suddenly remembered something, looked at Wei Kai and said, My daughter is about the same age as you, and she is also participating in the job transfer ceremony today. I just want her to have a good meal when she comes back from job transfer. Ah, Wei Kai was stunned when he heard this, and subconsciously said, Can't he be a classmate? Which school are you from? Shixiang number 2 middle school. Huh, class 1514. Yeah, the uncle was stunned for a moment, then shook his head, No. My daughter is in class 1501, and her grades are pretty good. After the era of universal job transfer began, the wilderness was occupied by alien beasts, and the surviving humans fled into the big cities. Yongning City has also become a big city with a population of 10 million. There are a total of 30 high schools in Yongning City, and the Shixiang number 2 middle school where Wei Kai is located is ranked in the middle. There are 15 classes in this session of Shixiang number 2 middle school, and students in each class are recruited based on their merits. In other words, only the students with the best grades can go to classes 1 and 2, and the better students will be in classes 3 and 4, and those with the lowest grades will naturally be placed in classes 14, and 2. Class 15. The uncle's daughter is in class 1501, which means that the other party's results are definitely among the top in this class. The uncle said that his daughter's grades were pretty good. I'm afraid he was being modest. Thinking of this, a figure suddenly appeared in Wei Kai's mind. Li Qingxia, the proud girl recognized by the whole school and the school beauty of Shixiang number 2 middle school, was transferred to the Spirit Flame Mage. The uncle's daughter, it can't be her, right? Uncle. What's your last name? If your surname is Li, you can also call me Uncle Li. The uncle smiled and was very cordial. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment, and his face couldn't help but feel a little embarrassed. It couldn't really be such a coincidence, could it? Okay, now that I've got the rabbit meat, it's time for me to go back and cook. The uncle smiled, waved his hand and said, looking at you, you should be familiar with the warrior's skills and fighting methods. Go back and buy some good equipment, and prepare to farm the 3rd level wild boar. Although the rabbit here is simple, the experience points and copper coins are very little, and after the 3rd level, there are none at all. Instead of wasting time here, it's better to adapt to the intensity of the wild boar's fighting in advance. In addition, it is best to prepare a set of novice equipment before going to the wild boar forest. Ah, thanks for the advice, uncle. Wei Kai quickly nodded in thanks. Although the teacher had also said what the other party said, the other party's willingness to say a few more words was considered a kind gesture. Naturally, he will not begrudge his gratitude to others for their kindness. You're welcome, I'm leaving. The uncle waved his hand, turned around and left. After the uncle left, Wei Kai also returned to the city. He was not in a hurry to go home, but went to the Xixiang market near the school. This is the largest market in Xixiang district, where you can buy almost anything you want. Hundreds of thousands of people trade and manufacture here every day, and it also supports hundreds of thousands of daily professionals. As soon as Wei Kai entered the market, he was stunned by the huge noise. He has been here before, but he has never seen such a lively scene. Is there any new activity? He looked around and found nothing new, so he simply ignored it. After walking for a while, Wei Kai finally came to the door of a trading house. This is an officially open trading house, which has everything you need. The most important thing is that the prices are fair and you are honest. It's most suitable for newcomers like him who don't know anything. There are also private trading houses and auction houses next door, where some rare and good things often appear, but the prices for each item are ridiculously expensive. People who are not rich would not dare to go in. It is said that these private trading houses are very evil and will try their best to lower the price when collecting items. When selling things, they like to brag and take advantage of the opportunity to increase prices. If a newbie who doesn't know anything comes in rashly, he may be eaten to the bone. After entering the trading house, someone quickly noticed him. A mature elder sister wearing a professional skirt and black stockings walked towards him with a smile on her face. Classmate, are you here to buy newbie equipment? Come here, we have what you want here. No, I'm here to sell something. Wei Kai specifically emphasized the word, sell. Oh, do you have a big treasure? The eldest sister raised her eyebrows and looked at him playfully. 2 cookbooks. Wei Kai didn't hide it and said directly. The recipe is a good thing, but it is not something shocking. As an old employee of the trading house, the other party must have seen a lot of it. Hearing this, the eldest sister suddenly laughed. It is indeed a good thing. But I don't know much about the recipe. Please wait a moment and I will find Uncle Liang to give you an estimate. After saying that, he twisted his waist and left. After a while, an old man with gray hair followed the woman and came to Wei Kai. You want to sell recipes? Yes. Wei Kai nodded, took out the 2 cookbooks from his backpack and handed them to the other party. This is an officially open trading house with official reputation guarantee, so you don't have to worry about items being hacked. After Uncle Liang took the recipe, he was stunned for a moment. Spicy rabbit meat. This thing is rare. Although it is dropped by the lowest level novice monster, the white rabbit, most career changers will not brush the white rabbit after level 2. Only newcomers who have just changed jobs will brush it. Newcomers often only get 20 of them, and then leave after reaching 2 levels. Therefore, the drop rate of this thing is extremely low, and there may not be 2 copies in the entire Yongning city. I didn't expect this kid to take out 2 copies at once. Thinking of this, Uncle Liang immediately raised his head and looked at the other party carefully. Did you get this? He asked curiously. No, it's a family tradition. Wei Kai shook his head quickly. He still knows the principle of keeping wealth secret. Although he did get this thing, if he admitted it, he might be pulled into slices immediately. Although he trusts the authorities, he does not easily trust people in official organizations. Both books are family heirlooms. Uncle Liang was slightly stunned. Yes. Wei Kai nodded and casually made up a story. When the game came to reality, I had just been born, and my grandfather bought 2 copies, saying they were for me to use in the future. But now I am a warrior. Recipes are for life professionals, and combat professionals will not waste skill points to learn this. When his grandfather bought the cookbook, it was just to prepare an insurance policy, so that if he changes his job to a living career when he becomes an adult, he can use it immediately. It can be considered a way out. But he definitely won't be able to use it now. Hearing this story, Uncle Liang nodded slightly and asked, "Are you selling recipes now to buy novice equipment?" "Yeah," Wei Kai nodded repeatedly. That's fine." Uncle Liang thought for a while and said with a smile, "The recipe for spicy rabbit meat is very rare. It can be said that it has a price but no market. I will charge it at twice the market price. Xiaoling, go and prepare a card worth 400,000 gold coins." Quote. Yes. The mature elder sister known as Xiaoling immediately cast an envious look at Wei Kai and then left with a twist. After a while, Wei Kai took a brand new bank card from the other party's hand, feeling a little excited. Got money. I finally have money. Wei Kai's family background is not good. After the game came to the real world, the wilderness was occupied by a large number of alien beasts. The surviving humans crowded into big cities and built towering city walls and magic circles around the cities to protect those weak people. But the land within the city wall is limited after all. When all the factories, farmland, rivers, and roads are crowded into the city, there will naturally be little space left. In order to solve this problem, officials began to build large-scale underground cities in the second year of the new Shili. In the third year of the new century, when Wei Kai was 3 years old, his family moved into the 13th floor underground. From then on, he spent most of his life underground. Only when he was in junior high school and high school, he would return to the surface to enjoy the rare sunshine and breeze. Now that he has graduated from high school, if nothing unexpected happens, he will soon return to the underground and become an unknown ordinary soldier. But all this changed because of a talent. Classmate, please confirm. At this moment, a gentle voice sounded in his ears, interrupting Wei Kai's memories. He raised his head and saw the mature elder sister looking at him with a smile. Well, okay, he nodded. Although the official trading houses are honest and trustworthy, their credibility is guaranteed. But before the transaction is completed, it is necessary to confirm it again and ensure that both money and goods are cleared. Wei Kai took out his mobile phone from his pocket and scanned the QR code on his bank card. The next moment, all the information of this bank card appears on the screen of the mobile phone. Although he already knew how much money was in the card, the dazzling number still made Wei Kai's heart beat faster. 400,000 gold coins were enough for him to buy a 50 square meter commercial house on the ground. In this way, he can lead his parents back to the ground and live under the sun again. This was the life he had dreamed of before and the goal he had strived for throughout his life. But now Wei Kai would not choose to do this. I want to buy equipment. He raised the bank card in his hand and said firmly, "Spend it all." What? The female salesperson was stunned on the spot. Uncle Liang, who was planning to leave, also stopped and looked at him in surprise. "Young man, are you sure? This is not a small amount of money." Uncle Liang reminded me kindly. Okay, Wei Kai nodded. "You are still a student." Uncle Liang spoke again, about to say something. Wei Kai shook his head. "No, I have graduated today. I have the right to make my own decisions, and these 2 cookbooks were given to me by my father." His meaning is obvious. These 2 cookbooks were given by his parents, which naturally gave him the right to use the money freely. Hearing this answer, Uncle Liang smiled helplessly, and then waved to the female salesperson. "Xiaoling, take him to the Tianzihao counter." "Oh well." Xiaoling nodded repeatedly, and then made a gesture of invitation to Wei Kai. The Tianzihao counter is the best counter in the trading house. Every piece of equipment here starts at the legendary level, and there are even epic level equipment. The price of each piece of equipment is also legendary, at least more than 100,000 gold coins. Wei Kai said that he would spend the 400,000 gold coins in his card, so he naturally wanted to buy the best one. After a while, the 2 came to the Tianzihao counter, and then on the recommendation of the teller, Wei Kai bought a set of legendary equipment suitable for novices. A total of 350,000 gold coins were spent. At the same time, I bought several extra large capacity backpacks with a total of 3,000 grids. Another 50,000 gold coins were spent. In less than 10 minutes, he had spent all the 400,000 gold coins in Cali. Looking at the empty bank card, Wei Kai couldn't help but sigh. What, you regret it? The mature elder sister asked gently. No, Wei Kai shook his head. I just think, earning money is so cool. Quote. Xiaoling was stunned on the spot. Krypton gold is really cool. For Wei Kai, the 400,000 gold coins were just money in exchange for 2 cookbooks, and these 2 cookbooks were dropped by him when he was farming the little white rabbit. There is no cost. With the talent of all item drops, he can drop a large number of precious items by just swiping a monster. It's not difficult at all to earn another 400,000 gold coins. What's more, the equipment he bought was for better killing monsters, which was equivalent to an investment in himself. How can you regret investing in yourself? Investing in yourself is to improve your combat effectiveness, to slay more monsters, and to drop more treasures. This is the path he wants to take. By the way, can I call you Sister Ling? Wei Kai asked with a slight smile. Of course, Xiaoling smiled and nodded. Sister Ling, can I ask which monsters dropped the equipment on me? Ah, Xiaoling was stunned for a moment, then asked with a smile, what, you want to fight by yourself? If I can buy a set, will you accept it? Wei Anping asked rhetorically. Of course, Xiaoling nodded with certainty, and finally added, as much as you want. Real, Wei Kai was quite pleasantly surprised, feeling like he was being taken advantage of. How much do you charge? I can sell you until you go bankrupt. Of course, after all, he wouldn't do that. After all, it is too easy to expose oneself by selling high-quality equipment in large quantities. If you accidentally reveal your talent, I'm afraid it will cause unnecessary trouble. Wei Kai is not stupid. Really, Xiaoling smiled and said, you bought equipment worth 400,000 gold coins and are already our honored guests, so I will give you a drop guide for free. Oh, thank you very much. Wei Kai was worried about where to go next to kill monsters. With this guide, all you have to do next is choose the monster with the best drop and grind it with all your might. After leaving the trading house, Wei Kaixian found a rice noodle shop and ate a bowl of rice noodles. While chatting about fans, he checked the novice equipment on his body. The biggest effect of this set of legendary novice equipment is not actually to add a few more skills, or how much more offense and defense it adds, but to add a lot of basic attributes to him. The meaning of basic attributes is very important. Combat attributes such as attack, defense, and resistance in this world are directly linked to attribute points. Only after the attribute points are high, the attack power and defense power are meaningful. As a level 2 novice, his basic attributes are very low. The 5 basic attribute values will only increase by 1 point each time you upgrade, and there are also 5 free attribute points. However, in most cases, these free attribute points are not clicked. Because most people don't dare to make mistakes before deciding on their own career change route. If they make a mistake, they will be in trouble. If you want to wash some, you have to pay a huge price. Only those who have determined the training route from the beginning, or whose families are very rich and do not care about the cost of laundering some points, will add points without any scruples. Wei Kai did not add any points, so his basic attribute points were very low. The 3 most important attributes of a warrior, strength, agility, and physique, all do not exceed 10 points. But this set of novice equipment on him provides a full 20 points of all attributes, which is equivalent to being upgraded to 20 levels. Not to mention other messy gains. All I can say is, it is indeed a legendary piece of equipment. After eating, the target was chosen. Wei Kai raised his head and glanced at the sky, then looked at the time on his phone. It's already 3 o'clock in the afternoon. There are still 3.5 hours until dark. It should be in time. The leveling area we are going to next is not far outside the city gate. If we hurry up, we can still level up for at least 2.5 hours. Wei Kai no longer hesitated and turned around and boarded the bus bound for East City Gate. 10 minutes later, Wei Kai got off the bus and went straight to his destination, Dongcheng Wild Boar Forest. This is also a novice leveling area, but the levels of monsters are 3 to 12, and the types of monsters are no longer single. There are not only wild boars in the place name, but also a series of wild beasts and monsters such as monkeys, wild wolves, and tigers. Deep in the forest, elite monsters with entries will occasionally appear. Once killed, you can get a lot of rewards. However, elite monsters are often 3 levels higher than ordinary monsters, and have special entries that make them more difficult to kill. If you are not careful, you may even overturn. In most cases, elite monsters need to be teamed up to kill them stably. However, Wei Kai does not need to go out of his way to farm elite monsters. For him, the explosion rate of all monsters is the same. It's all 100%. Just as he was thinking about it, a low roar suddenly came from not far away. Oh, ouch! A wild boar with a thick head and thick flesh was crashing towards him. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment, and then he remembered, wild monsters above level 3 will take the initiative to attack. But, just in time. He immediately pulled out the legendary sword he just bought and pointed it at the big wild boar that was charging towards him. Top pick. Wei Kai swung his sword fiercely. The next moment, the big wild boar that rushed in front of him was directly knocked away by the huge power of the sword. After several seconds, it landed a few meters away. This blow directly killed half of the wild boar's life. After landing, Wei Kai rushed over to make up for the flat A and completely eliminated it. Fortunately, I'm more skilled. Looking at the big wild boar that turned into a corpse, Wei Kai curled his lips and felt quite proud. The teacher in the school taught me that monsters above level 3 will have their own innate skills, such as the collision of the wild boar in front of me. Although the wild boar is only at level 3, when it activates the collision skill, its strength will be as high as 15 points. In other words, you must have more than 15 points of strength to resist its collision. Otherwise, you will be knocked out. The greater the difference in strength, the harder it will be knocked away. If it is a novice mage with only a little strength, it will have to fly at least 10 meters. Being knocked away is no small thing. Although the real world has been digitized into games, you will still be injured after being knocked away. Once you are injured, unless you go to a doctor or a healing profession for treatment, the debuff will exist for a long time, and it will also affect your own status depending on the severity of the injury. But if your strength is higher, then the wild boar will be knocked away. Just like just now, Wei Kai, who had 26 points of strength, relied on the warrior's uplift skill to not only withstand the collision of the big wild boar, but also to flip the opponent away. This move not only killed half of the wild boar's life, but also injured it, so that the last hit can be carried out smoothly. This is the importance of basic attributes. After comprehensively crushing the monsters in terms of attributes, killing monsters is just a matter of chopping melons and vegetables, not too simple. However, not everyone can use this trick. After all, not every novice can be like Wei Kai, who has more than 20 points of all attributes at just 2 levels. Not everyone can afford legendary beginner equipment. This is the effect of Krypton Gold. After some emotion, Wei Kai looked at the wild boar's fall. It exploded again. Not surprisingly, the talents dropped by all items are effective again. Although it is an ordinary level 3 mob, the wild boar is still very explosive. There are a dozen items dropped on the ground, waiting to be picked up. Wei Kai didn't hesitate and picked them all up, then slowly checked them. First, the most common ingredients. As the most suitable prey for hunting, wild boars drop more than a dozen kinds of food. Pork, pig's trotters, pig's head, pork ribs, pig's heart, pig's lungs, pork loin, pig's trotters, etc., and even pig intestines. I ask you to kill monsters and buy equipment, but you will give the monsters their heart and lungs. By piecing these fallen ingredients back together, you might be able to get a complete pig. This thing seems to be the ingredient for making 9-turn large intestine, right? Wei Kai picked up the pig intestines and took a look at it, and then suddenly remembered a video from his previous life. Did you do it on purpose or accidentally? If there is no corresponding recipe, the 9-turn large intestine may just taste bad. Unfortunately, there really isn't. This wild boar is also popular in recipes, but it is the most common barbecue recipe. Barbecuing is the easiest thing to make, and you can make it yourself even if there is no recipe. Just have fire and meat. Even if the cooked barbecue cannot increase its attributes, it can still fill your stomach and obtain some simple satiety buffs. The school has long taught that as long as combat professionals are above level 3, they must learn a campfire skill so that they can grill their own meat to fill their stomachs while leveling in the wild. If you encounter a fog dungeon or a place to explore such as a cave, the campfire skill will be of greater use. Wei Kai hasn't reached level 3 yet, so he's not in a hurry to learn. In addition to ingredients and recipes, this wild boar also exploded a lot of equipment. There are as many as 5 pieces, 1 high-end blue equipment and 4 ordinary whiteboard equipment. Of course Wei Kai looked down on these equipments, but they were not useless. At least they could be taken back to the equipment recycler in exchange for some copper coins. Anyway, there was a big backpack with 3,000 grids, so Wei Kai just threw it all in. After looking at the equipment, the next step is some materials. Boar tusks, boar bristles. Is this thing used as a toothbrush? Wei Kai scratched his head. Although the factories in the wild were completely destroyed by alien beasts, human technology in this world has not retreated because of this, and there has never been a shortage of necessary daily necessities. Things like toothpaste and toothbrushes are still sold in stores. It seems that there is no need to use boar hair for toothbrush. No matter, put it away first and then talk. Regardless of the materials, as long as they are dropped by monsters, they can actually be sold for money. There are some material dealers in the city who focus on purchasing these messy materials, so they are also called garbage recyclers. Despite their unpleasant nicknames, they are actually very rich, well-informed and have many channels. What others see as rubbish may become a priceless treasure in the hands of these people. After reading these 2 materials, Wei Kai turned his attention to the last item, and then his pupils suddenly shrank. Elixir crumbs. He softly read the item's name. Yes, this last item is exactly the same as the elixir fragments that fell when you brushed the little white rabbit. In other words, it's the same thing. Wild boars also drop this. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment, then he simply found a clean stone to sit down on, took out his mobile phone and started searching online. I searched online for a long time on my mobile phone. The more he checked, the more doubts Wei Kai became. Not at all. I can't find any information about elixir crumbs on the internet. Even in the official drop list, there is no corresponding drop. Could it be said that in the past 18 years, no one has dropped such spiritual crumbs when brushing white rabbits or wild boars? How is this possible? Wei Kai was stunned for a long time, completely unable to believe the result. Is it because of my special talent that this thing exploded? Yes. My talent is to drop all items, that is, as long as the monster can drop everything, it will be 100% dropped. That's why the spiritual medicine debris can be exploded. If it is an ordinary person, it may also fall, but the probability is extremely low, maybe infinitely close to 0. But even so, it's impossible not to fall completely. Wei Kai became even more confused. But he soon thought of another possibility. Unless someone deliberately concealed this dropped item and completely erased its information online. Most people definitely don't have such great abilities. Only the official can do this. This elixir fragment is very important. Wei Kai immediately came to a conclusion that made his heart beat faster. It is absolutely important for the officials to go to such great lengths to conceal something. No matter what it does. No matter, let's put it away first. He now has 21 elixir fragments. Although he doesn't know how many more are needed to synthesize the so-called elixir, his intuition tells him it shouldn't be far. After thinking about it, Wei Kai continued the method of spawning monsters just now. The wild boar is very offensive. Once it enters its attack range, it will immediately activate the crash skill to rush over. Wei Kai only needs to swing his long sword, use one move to lift it away, and then rush forward to hit it. The whole process can be described as smooth and smooth. The wild boar is a level 3 monster. It has a lot of experience points and copper coins, plus it drops more than a dozen pieces at a time. Compared with before, the efficiency of monster spawning is simply as high as in the sky or on the ground. With such high efficiency, Wei Kai was naturally focused on killing monsters. As for the drops and stuff, he only looked at them occasionally. Half an hour later, when Wei Kai used the same method to kill the 15th wild boar, a pink light on the ground made his eyes light up. Pink drop. He was slightly startled and quickly picked it up, only to find that it turned out to be a cookbook. 9 turns of the large intestine. Hey, I didn't expect that the wild boar here would actually drop the recipe for 9 turns of large intestine. This is an amazing treasure. The recipes and materials dropped by wild monsters are divided into grades just like the equipment. Common ones are white, advanced ones are blue, rare ones are purple, and legendary ones are pink. On top of the legend, there is the red epic level and the golden mythical level. Even if a legendary recipe is sold in an official trading house, it can be sold for at least 500,000 gold coins. What's more, this is a very rare, 9-turn large intestine. This trip was indeed not in vain. Wei Kai chuckled and remembered his previous thoughts when buying novice equipment. Sure enough, investing in yourself was the right thing to do. As long as monsters can be spawned quickly, gold coins, materials, and equipment will just keep coming. In addition to this, 9 turns of large intestines, Wei Kai saw 2 new cookbooks in his backpack, namely, braised pork trotters, and sweet and sour pork ribs. Among them, 2 copies of sweet and sour pork ribs dropped. Although these 2 books are only purple rare cookbooks, they can still be sold for a lot of money. 100,000 gold coins is appropriate. It seems that this wild boar forest is really a treasure. A mere level 3 wild boar can drop 4 recipes, including a pink legendary recipe. If you don't max it out, you won't be able to afford the talent of all items drop. Thinking of this, Wei Kai immediately looked at a wild boar not far away. Hello, look at me. Oh, ouch. The boar roared again and charged at him. He went on like this for nearly 2.5 hours, until the alarm on his cell phone rang, and Wei Kai woke up from the excitement of killing monsters. In just 2.5 hours, he killed nearly 50 wild boars, and his level was raised to level 4. There are countless dropped items in the backpack. But Wei Kai raised his head and glanced at the sky. It was almost dark. It's time to go back. After saying that, he quickly packed up the drops that had just exploded, then turned around and left. Dark time in Yongning City is at 6:30 in the afternoon. After dark, no matter what occupation or level you are, you cannot stay in the wild. Because the wild at this time will become very dangerous, not only there will be a large number of high-level strange beasts. There will even be powerful bosses. These bosses will be greatly enhanced at night, and their strength will be at least 1.5 times that of the day. In this situation, anyone who is not a fool will not fight against them. The way to deal with darkness is actually very simple, just hide in the city. Today, there are only 108 large cities left in the Dragon Kingdom, each with a population of more than 1 million. On the periphery of each city, there are towering walls and powerful magic circles, which are enough to isolate the inside and outside and protect the residents of the city. Once night falls, just hide in the city and you will be safe. If you can't go back to the city, then you'll have to ask for your blessings. At this time, there was still half an hour before dark. The wild boar forest where Wei Kai was located was not too far from the East City Gate. It only took 10 minutes to return to the city from the East City Gate. In the wild, night is a sign of approaching danger. But in the city, night is just the beginning of the day. During the day, combat professionals and auxiliary professionals need to go out to explore and level up monsters, while life professionals also need to perform various productions. Workers, farmers, and businessmen all also need to go to work and contribute to the survival of the city. Only in the evening, when everyone returns to the city, can everyone relax completely, play and live to their heart's content, and enjoy this hard-won day. Because of this, cities are often the liveliest at night. Just after taking the bus back to Shixiang District, Wei Kai felt the excitement of the night as soon as he got off the bus. A huge and noisy sound came towards me. The streets were crowded with people, filled with residents coming out for air and combat professionals who had just returned. A large number of stalls are lined up along the street, offering all kinds of snacks, clothing, and daily necessities. Wei Kai walked off the platform, looked around for a moment, and then saw 2 figures waving to him. "Brother Kai, you are finally back." When the first person saw him, he immediately ran towards this direction. Another man, who was slightly fatter, also ran over close behind. "You have been waiting for a long time." Wei Kai smiled and looked at the 2 good brothers in front of him. Wu Yi and Li Changgelin. Wu Yi and Li Changgelin were Wei Kai's childhood friends. The three of them grew up together in a community on the 13th floor underground, and then went to elementary school, junior high school, and high school together. During this period, we were occasionally not in the same class, but we were still in the same school. More than 10 years of growing up together have made the friendship between the three very strong. In the local dialect, it is so good that you can wear the same pair of pants. When he first traveled through time, Wei Kai was a little uncomfortable with the enthusiasm of the other two people at first. After a week of getting along, he slowly felt their kindness and sincerity. From then on, I slowly opened my heart to accept them. At the recent graduation ceremony, the three of them also participated in the job transfer ceremony together. It's a pity that Wu Yi and Li Chengelin did not change their professions to warriors or auxiliary professions, but to life professions. It was Wu Yi's suggestion that the three of them gather together this time. He sent a notice on his mobile phone early, asking Wei Kai to come to this street that never sleeps and wait after dark. Let's go to the old place, I'm treating you. Wu Yi was relatively short and could barely reach Wei Kai's shoulders. However, he still shot it very hard. When Wei Kai saw this, he immediately turned his head and glanced at Li Chengelin next to him, who looked back at him. What happened? Wei Kai asked immediately and thoughtfully. Well, let's talk about it when we get to the old place. Wu Yi nodded, but did not answer directly immediately. After a while, everyone came to a barbecue restaurant called Wine and Meat. This is the old place where the three of them gather. It's said to be an old place, but in fact I've only been there twice, each time secretly. The three families all live underground. They are not from a wealthy class, and they don't have much pocket money to go out for barbecues. Only when graduation is approaching, parents will give them more pocket money so that they can relax. After ordering a few skewers and a bottle of beer, the three of them sat down. You can talk now. Wei Kai looked straight at Wu Yi, as if he could see a lot of worry on his face. If there was nothing wrong, he would not take the initiative to summon the other two people to come to a place like this to drink. I'm going to Shuzhong to learn cooking from my uncle. Wu Yi took a sip of beer and frowned in pain. Why do you have to go to Shuzhong? Wei Kai was stunned for a moment. At the recent job change ceremony, Wu Yi changed his job to a chef in his career. This profession can be described as a panacea. Even among the many professions in life, it is still very popular. After all, no matter what the situation, people have to eat. As long as people still need to eat, chefs are indispensable. Even if you can't afford recipes, a chef can rely on his cooking skills to open a small shop in the community or set up a stall on the street that never sleeps. The income may not be high, but it is definitely no problem to support a family. If you can get a good cookbook, you will be able to turn around and become a successful person in no time. My uncle said that if he lets me work for him for 3 years, he will buy me a cookbook. Wu Yi quickly answered his doubts. Hearing this answer, Wei Kai suddenly frowned. Isn't this just painting a cake? As the saying goes, if you die of poverty, you will not cultivate your father-in-law's land, if you die of hunger, you will not work for relatives. The consequence of working for a relative is that you will be squeezed to death. Even your uncle may not be much better off. Don't we have recipes in Yongning City? Li Chengelin, who had been listening for a long time, finally couldn't help but speak. Wu Yi is also his good brother, and he doesn't want him to leave Yongning and go to work in distant Shu. Not really. Wu Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. This morning, as soon as my dad learned about my job change as a chef, he went to all the major trading houses and auction houses to ask, but there was no cookbook on the market. Quote. No, I don't believe it. Li Chengelin was stunned for a moment, took out his cell phone in disbelief, and checked on the spot. Wei Kai was also stunned for a moment, but soon thought of a possibility. I'm afraid someone has stocked up in advance. He reminded. This time of year is when high school students change careers. Once the job change is completed, a large number of fresh life professionals will be born, and most of these life professionals will need corresponding skill books. Among them, the chef's recipes are the most popular and the most valuable. Skill books are one-time consumables. If you stock up on a batch of skill books in advance, you can definitely make a lot of money. My dad said the same thing, so I want to work for a few years and save some money to buy something in Sichuan. Wu Yi nodded. The recipes over there are cheaper? Wei Kai asked. Yes, Wu Yi smiled and said. Residents in Shu prefer delicious food. A large number of people buy various meats every day, especially rabbit meat, so there are more recipes dropped. Well, that's true. Wei Kai thought about it and found that this seemed to make sense. Holy crap, it actually costs 400,000 gold coins. At this moment, Li Chenggelin, who was checking recipes on his mobile phone, suddenly screamed. What? Wei Kai and Wu Yi looked at him quickly. Recipe. Li Chenggelin pointed to the screen of his mobile phone and said, a recipe for spicy rabbit meat actually sold for 400,000 gold coins. It's so shameful. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Wei Kai and Wu Yi widened their eyes at the same time, and then said in unison. It's so dark. Wei Kai never expected that a cookbook that he only sold for 200,000 gold coins at noon would be sold for 400,000 gold coins in an instant. It turns out that the official trading house is also so shady. Just as he was sighing with emotion, Li Chenggelin over there exclaimed again. Sold. Ah, Wei Kai and Wu Yi were stunned when they saw the word, sold out, on the screen. A cookbook worth 400,000 gold coins was sold in an instant. Isn't this too fast? No wonder people are stocking up, the cookbook is so popular. Look, poor people like me can't afford it. Wu Yi had a wry smile on his face. You couldn't afford a recipe book of 400,000 gold coins even if you sold it to him. But even if you work for 3 years, you still can't save 400,000 gold coins. Li Chenggelin reminded in a low voice. Well, upon hearing this, Wu Yi sighed lonelily. Seeing this scene, Wei Kai suddenly couldn't bear it and made up his mind. Hey, can you barbecue? Barbecue. Wu Yi raised his head and glanced at him doubtfully. Barbecuing is not difficult. For a chef, barbecue can be said to be the simplest skill. If you can't even do this, what kind of chef is he? I have a cookbook here. With that said, Wei Kai took out a barbecue recipe book directly from his backpack and handed it over. Seeing this purple cookbook, both Wu Yi and Li Chenggelin's eyes widened. Where did this come from? I said it was killed by monsters, do you believe it? Wei Kai asked with a smile. Chapter 11, Shixiang Market, Official Trading House. Wu Xiaopeng tremblingly handed over a bank card in his hand, and then took a purple cookbook from the other party's hand. Both parties pay with one hand and deliver the goods with the other. After getting the recipe, Wu Xiaopeng took a deep breath and felt very complicated. Just today, his son finally graduated from high school and successfully changed his job. But no one expected that his son's career change would be chef in his career. The profession of chef, with or without recipes, can be said to be in heaven and on earth. As the saying goes, those who have recipes can only be called chefs, and those who don't have recipes can only be called stir-fryers. In order not to let his son lose at the starting line, and for his son's future, he traveled throughout Yongning City during the day, and finally found a recipe for spicy rabbit meat here. But this thing is too expensive. A full 400,000 gold coins. This is the most expensive thing he has ever bought in his life, and it is also the boldest transaction. This cookbook has depleted the whole family's belongings and all the money they planned to use to buy a house on the ground. Originally, the child's uncle promised that he could buy a cookbook for the child in Shu, but the condition was that he would learn cooking skills from him for 3 years. When Wu Xiaopeng heard this condition, he felt it was unreliable. Doesn't learning cooking from your uncle for 3 years mean you're 3 years behind? You must know that now is the era of job transfer for all people, and everyone is working hard. If there are no official regulations, you must graduate from high school before you can change jobs. Many parents even wish that their children would change jobs as soon as they are born, go grind monsters and level up when they are 1 year old, and be able to challenge bosses when they are 2 years old. Who wants their children to lose at the starting line? If my son goes to learn cooking for 3 years, it will be a waste of 3 years, and I am afraid that he will be even less able to keep up with the times. It was out of this consideration that Wu Xiaopeng finally gritted his teeth, stamped his feet, and chose to spend all his savings to buy this cookbook. After putting the recipe into his backpack, Wu Xiaopeng felt a lot more relaxed. After walking out of the trading house, he couldn't wait to take out his mobile phone and dial the familiar number. Hey, son, come back quickly. What? Good thing. Are you with Chong Lin, Akai and the others? Then come back together. Aha, time goes back to 10 minutes ago. Outside the barbecue restaurant on Evernight Street. When Wei Kai took out the barbecue recipe book, Wu Yi and Li Changelin were dumbfounded. This thing, is it really a monster spawn? You kid, you must be so lucky. Yes, there are 400,000 gold coins each. Can't I buy a house on the ground floor? You got such a good thing on your first day, isn't it because you opened it? The two of them sighed with emotion and envy at the same time. Rukai, Wei Kai said with a smile. As life professionals, Wu Yi and Li Changelin were destined to have no chance of fighting. They had no way to go to the wild to brush monsters and level up, and they had no chance to reveal such precious things. If you want to make money, you can only rely on your own hard work to make money. Looking at my former friend, soaring into the sky, it would be a lie to say I'm not envious. Give. After the two of them finished talking, Wei Kai gently handed the recipe to Wu Yi. Such an understatement was like handing the other person a skewer. Ah, Wu Yi was stunned again. He seemed to want to say something, but he didn't know how to say it. The cookbook in front of me is really too valuable. Just take it. Wei Kai directly put the recipe into the opponent's hand and said confidently, I am only at level 4 now. After I turn around, I will spawn monsters quickly. I will have as many recipes as I want. By then, I'm afraid you won't be able to learn it. That's right, just take it. Li Changelin also took the opportunity to say, Brother Kai said that he came out with this. If you can get one copy, you can get the second one. But, this is 400,000 gold coins. Wu Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. Just now, the three of them witnessed the sale of a cookbook for a sky-high price of 400,000 gold coins. Even if you sell me, you won't be able to get 400,000 gold coins. Fart, you and I, brothers, aren't you worth the 400,000? Wei Kai cursed angrily and said resolutely, learn it and roast a piece of meat for me every day from now on. And, don't let brother down. Okay. Wu Yi took a deep breath. Brother Kai, my life will be yours from now on. At this moment, the cell phone in his pocket suddenly rang. He was about to answer the phone, but Wei Kai grabbed his hand first, study first and then talk. All right. Wu Yi smiled bitterly and nodded. Learning skills is actually very simple. As long as you have enough skill points, you can automatically learn them by opening the recipe. It only took a second for Wu Yi to learn the barbecue recipe. Then the call was answered. Dad, I'm outside. What's up? I'm with Brother Kai and Chong Lin, later, okay. After hanging up the phone, Wu Yi looked at the two friends, sighed and said, my dad asked me to go back, and asked you to come too. Uncle Peng asked us to come together. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment and asked doubtfully, what's the matter? My dad said it's a good thing. Wu Yi replied. Li Changelin nodded. I have no problem, Brother Kai, what about you? There's something else. Wei Kai hesitated for a moment. He also found a lot of materials in his backpack today and needed to get rid of them. Especially those meats, and several rare recipes. Although the real world has become an online game, some things have not changed much, such as people getting sick and meat rotting. Even if you put it in your backpack, it will only slow down the rate of decay. As long as a day or two pass, the meat will become stale. After 5 or 6 days, it will begin to slowly rot, eventually becoming moldy, smelly, and infested with maggots. I got so much meat today. If I don't get rid of it quickly, it will become stale meat tomorrow. Thinking of this, Wei Kai suddenly realized, by the way, I'll give you something more. With that said, he took out a few pieces of pork from his backpack and handed them to Wu Yi. Is this the pork you shot? Isn't that right? How come you kid can get everything? Li Changelin's face was full of envy and he said, it's great to be a combat professional. It would be great if I could also go out of the city to kill monsters. Aren't you an alchemist? Wei Kai smiled and said, if you get a few alchemy bombs, you can kill monsters, right? It's not that easy. Li Changelin spread his hands and said with a wry smile, we don't have the formula, we don't have the materials, and we don't have the laboratory, we don't have anything, so we can only pick up some junk equipment to refine the refined iron. Don't worry, everything will be fine. Wei Kai patted the other party's shoulder and said firmly. After separating from the two of them, Wei Kai went to Shixiang Market alone. Standing in front of the two trading houses, he hesitated for a moment and then decisively walked into the one on the left. At the barbecue restaurant before, he saw with his own eyes that the recipe he sold for 200,000 gold coins was resold for a high price of 400,000 gold coins. The facts tell him that everyone is here to make money. Since there is no difference between official trading houses and private trading houses, there is no need for him to go to the official trading houses. What's more, I just sold 2 cookbooks at the official trading house during the day, and if I go to sell a few more at night, it's hard not to make people suspicious. The private trading shop was quite deserted, with no customers in the entire store. There were only 4 or 5 bored receptionists gathering together to talk about something. When they noticed someone coming in, several receptionists immediately turned their heads and looked over. After a while, someone curled his lips and remained indifferent. Someone complained in a low voice, "Another rookie here to buy newbie equipment. Today is job transfer day. It's normal. Maybe I went to the wrong door." Someone smiled and didn't care. This is a private trading house that only deals with high-end transactions and does not have ordinary novice equipment. As for the guy who came in, although he was handsome, he looked like a poor boy in his clothes. "I'm afraid I entered the wrong door. You don't even look in the mirror before you come in." A salesperson glanced at Wei Kai and raised his voice. In fact, Wei Kai could hear their chat without her raising her voice. 20 points of all attributes not only make him stronger, but also more agile. The improvement of his mental and physical fitness can also make his 6 senses more acute. Not only can he hear farther and smaller sounds, but he can also slightly feel the emotions of the other party. The person who spoke was obviously looking down on him, and the contempt in his words overflowed. Wei Kai turned around and left, but before he had taken a few steps, he heard a gentle call from behind. "Pretty boy, do you need any help?" The voice sounded familiar. Wei Kai immediately turned his head, and then said with some surprise, "Hey, is it you?" "It's you." The person who called him was also very surprised. He didn't expect that he was someone he knew. "Sister Ling, aren't you?" Wei Kai looked confused and pointed to the next door. PFF. Tian Xiaoling lightly covered her lips, pointed to the next door and said, "That's where I work." "What about here?" Wei Kaixin's doubts were still unsolved. "This is opened by my family." Tian Xiaoling replied with a smile. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Wei Kai was dumbfounded on the spot. Can it still be like this? I don't care about my own trading house, but I go to work at the official trading house next door. I think I have nothing to do. Well, the situation here is a bit complicated and I can't explain it at the moment. Tian Xiaoling smiled softly, took the initiative to come over and said, "Let's talk about your situation. What's the matter with you here?" "Oh, right." As she said that, she opened her eyes wide and looked Wei Kai up and down with bright eyes, then smiled and said, "It seems that you have leveled up a lot during the day. Are you here to change your equipment?" "Actually, I'm here to sell things." Wei Kai lowered his voice and said. "What?" Hearing the words, "selling things," Tian Xiaoling's eyes widened like a neurological reflex, and she couldn't help but exclaimed, "You got it again." "Shush." Wei Kai quickly made a silencing gesture. "Okay, come with me." Tian Xiaoling immediately woke up, greeted him directly, and walked to the second floor of the trading house. When passing by the group of receptionists, Tian Xiaoling gave them a meaningful look, and the latter immediately lowered their heads. After the two of them went upstairs, the receptionists finally dared to raise their heads. The receptionist who had been silent before suddenly breathed a sigh of relief, then pretended to pour water and left quickly. The receptionist who was gossiping in a low voice just stayed where he was, at a loss. Finally, there was the loudly disdainful receptionist, livid, embarrassed and annoyed. "I wanted to resign on the spot and run away, but I couldn't bear to part with the wonderful environment and good salary here. I can only wait there with confusion, as if waiting for the final judgment." No one expected that an ordinary boy would be a distinguished customer of the trading house. Not only is he qualified to go to the second floor, but she is also the eldest lady of the company and brought her up in person. I'm afraid not 1 out of 10,000 customers would receive such treatment. Because the eldest lady usually doesn't come here at all, unless something happens. But the reality is so cruel. Went up to the second floor. Wei Kaiakai discovered that this place was quite luxurious, with mahogany furniture, paintings and calligraphy by famous artists, and everything else. The most important thing is that the environment here is very quiet. You can see the night view outside through the window without being disturbed by noisy sounds. Sit wherever you like. Tian Xiaoling let go of her hand and then asked him to sit down. Very few people come here, right? This is the VIP reception room of the trading house. Tian Xiaoling explained with a smile. I only come here to receive VIPs. Am I considered a distinguished guest? Wei Kai asked rhetorically. Why doesn't it count? Tian Xiaoling smiled slightly and said, you are a noble person who can spend 400,000 gold coins to buy novice equipment. It has been 18 years since the national job transfer started, and she herself has been working at the trading house next door for 3 years. She has never seen anyone spend so much money to buy novice equipment. For most people, the novice stage will pass quickly, and they can reach level 10 in 5 days at most. All equipment will have to be replaced by then. A set of novice equipment that can only be worn for 5 days. Only the real rich would buy it. Of course, it's possible that he was taken advantage of. So, you have already regarded me as someone who was taken advantage of. Wei Kai said, pretending to be angry. Where? Tian Xiaoling quickly smiled and said seriously, I think you are the third type of person. What? You look like you don't have much money, but you don't care at all, because you are very confident that you can earn back the money sooner or later. Right. Tian Xiaoling expressed her judgment while observing his reaction. Not bad. Wei Kai nodded and began to admire the other party's vision. I have to say that people who can work in official trading houses do have a very vicious vision. So, you're here to make money again? Tian Xiaoling looked at him with a smile. Yes. Wei Kai laughed and admitted generously. Now that the other party has guessed his purpose, he has no intention of hiding anything. After saying this, he took out 3 cookbooks from his backpack. Recipe. Seeing these recipes, Tian Xiaoling immediately opened her mouth, and then hurriedly covered her lips with her hands to prevent herself from losing her composure. How did you get so many recipes? If it were just 1 copy, she might not be so surprised, but Wei Kai had 3 copies in his hand. These are 3 books. If the person sitting opposite her was a veteran warrior with level 2 or above of level 260, she might not be a little surprised. But, Wei Kai is a newbie who just changed jobs today. How is this possible? For a copy of 400,000 gold coins, I can sell them all to you. Wei Kai did not explain much, but simply stated the price. Hearing the price, Tian Xiaoling was stunned for a moment, and then smiled and said, you think too highly of us. We can't afford a recipe book worth 400,000 yuan. Really? Wei Kai smiled and asked. I just saw on my phone that you sold the spicy rabbit meat cookbook for 400,000 gold coins. That's the selling price. Tian Xiaoling said calmly. The purchase price can't be the same as the selling price, right? We can't work in vain. That's true. Then it's 20,000 cheaper. Wei Kai thought for a moment and said, but I have a condition. You say. The price of these recipes can only be sold for a maximum of 400,000 gold coins, not a penny more. Why? Tian Xiaoling was stunned when she heard this, unable to understand the other party's intention at all. After the trading house receives the goods, how much it sells is the business of the trading house, and the official price bureau has no control over it. Why do you care? No matter how expensive it is, no one can afford it, Wei Kai said bluntly. 400,000 gold coins is already a lifetime savings for an ordinary family. Let ordinary families spend their entire life savings just to buy a cookbook for their children. He can't do this kind of thing. In fact, Wei Kai felt that 100,000 gold coins was already very expensive. Everyone should have one, or several, of this most basic skill book. It's best to give it as a gift when you change jobs. Even if it only sells for 200,000 gold coins, not many people can afford it. Tian Xiaoling's face suddenly became serious. She sat up straight and said seriously, this is not the problem of the trading house, but the output of the recipe is too little. Yongning is a small city, and there are not many resources nearby. There are not many combat professionals who change jobs every year, and there are even fewer talented ones among them. In today's environment, all equipment, materials, and skill books must be produced by combat professionals. If the combat professionals are not good enough, the development of the entire city will not be good, and if the city is not developing well, it will further lead to the failure of the combat professionals. Such a vicious cycle. Wei Kai was noncommittal about these words, but he still had a doubt. Can you guarantee that the trading house is not secretly hoarding goods? Well, maybe, but even if the trading house doesn't stock up on goods, others will. Tian Xiaoling retorted. There are only so many recipes on the market. Rich people also have to think about their families. If there is a chef in the family, you can't just buy it temporarily, right? In the final analysis, there are still too few recipes on the market. If there are so many that you can buy them anytime and anywhere, why do you need to stock up? There was some truth in what he said, and Wei Kai couldn't help but nodded. Basic materials such as skill books should be available everywhere, otherwise those living professions would not be necessary. Speaking of which, it seems that skill books for combat professions are also very rare. I'm afraid this is not a problem faced by one or two professions, but a problem faced by the entire human world. The entire human world's material reserves are very scarce. But after thinking about it, this doesn't seem strange. After all, the era of universal job transfer has only begun for 18 years. In the past 18 years, except for the chaotic first few years, the rest of the time was basically consolidating the defense line, building cities, and exploring the wild. Until now, humans have not even been able to know how many monsters there are in the wild and which ones are the most powerful. The most advanced combat professional in the entire human world has only reached level 3 to 81. This is far from reaching the peak, and it cannot even penetrate into the secret realm of the wild. To put it bluntly, the entire world is still in the newbie village stage, and it is normal to have a shortage of supplies. What if I could provide it in bulk? Wei Kai suddenly had an idea and asked in a low voice. What do you mean? Tian Xiaoling was stunned for a moment, then realized, you mean, you can get a large number of recipes? Yes, I'm very lucky. Wei Kai said calmly. Tian Xiaoling shook her head and said in a more serious tone, how can you get this thing if you are lucky? I'm very lucky, Wei Kai emphasized. Tian Xiaoling suddenly realized. So, those 2 books during the day. Hee. Wei laughed and didn't answer. Seeing this situation, Tian Xiaoling was stunned on the spot. It took a while before she suddenly realized, your talent for changing jobs should be related to luck, right? The talents obtained by everyone after changing jobs are very different. Although most people's talents are related to their profession. But some people are exceptions, and they will have talents such as luck, charm, monster affinity, elemental resistance, etc. The talent that can increase the explosion rate is naturally related to luck. You can say that. Wei Kai nodded. He knew very well that it was impossible to completely hide his situation. After all, the drops from monster spawning every day cannot be consumed by oneself alone. You have to find a way to sell them for money. The city of Yongning is so big, and there are only 5 trading houses in total. Behind these trading houses, there might be a family. Once he sells a large amount of goods in a certain store, he will soon be known to everyone in the circle. By then, there will definitely be speculation about him. Rather than letting others speculate, it is better to admit to a less outrageous situation, such as having a lucky talent. Luck is a very mysterious thing. When you are lucky, you can make a big explosion. When you are unlucky, you cannot drop anything. As long as you admit this lucky talent, you can push forward everything in the future. No one would doubt his talent. It's like you 10 million won in a lottery ticket, but no one knows it yet. If you are afraid that the big prize will be leaked and others will miss you, you will not dare to spend money to enjoy it. Your 10 million is like missing out. But if you buy another lottery ticket and claim that you won 200,000, then you can spend your money with confidence. Even if you have the lucky talent, you can't provide recipes in large quantities, right? Tian Xiaoling was still a little doubtful. After all, the drop rate of basic skill books such as recipes is too low. Ordinary people may not be able to drop 1 copy if they swipe 10,000 monsters. Even if you have the lucky talent and the drop rate increases 100 times, the drop rate will only be 1% at most. 1%, can he get through it alone? If you don't believe it, you can take a look at my backpack. Wei Kai said, sharing his backpack situation with the other party. The next moment, Tian Xiaoling was stunned on the spot. How can there be so many things? The 3,000 slot backpack is filled to the brim with all kinds of equipment, materials, and sundries. Among them, the most eye-catching thing is the touch of pink. Is this 9-turn large intestine? It's a recipe. Wei Kai smiled slightly and corrected in a low voice. Your recipes are quite a lot. After the shock, Tian Xiaoling took a long time to regain her composure, and then laughed at herself wryly. At first, she didn't quite believe him, but after seeing what was in the backpack, she was completely convinced. This guy's luck is not generally good. There are more than a dozen recipes in the backpack that others may not be able to discover after years of research, including a very rare legendary recipe, 9-turn large intestine. If this cookbook were sold, it could fetch more than 1 million gold coins. How? Wei Kai looked into her eyes and asked, do you believe I have this ability now? Can I see your talent? Tian Xiaoling did not answer directly, but asked cautiously. As soon as these words came out, Wei Kai suddenly frowned. After a while, he finally said, can I trust you? I can sign a heavenly contract with you. Tian Xiaoling immediately raised her right hand and said seriously, if I tell anyone what I saw, I will be killed by heaven immediately, and I will become a monster in the next life and die 100 times a day. Contract of heaven. It's not necessary. Wei Kai shook his head. The so-called contract with heaven is similar to the oath made to heaven in the previous life. It's just that there is really a way of heaven in this world, and the way of heaven is really working seriously. Once you violate the contract of heaven, you will definitely die and there will be no escape. The binding force of the contract of heaven is so powerful that no one dares to joke about it. But correspondingly, the cost of signing a contract is also very high. It not only requires a specific contract, but also meets the conditions of heaven. That is to say, the content of the contract must be fair and just. For example, Tian Xiaoling said she wanted to see Wei Kai's talent, but the price was that she would be punished by heaven if she said it. Once he agrees and signs the contract, Wei Kai must disclose his talent to her without reservation, otherwise Wei Kai will be punished. No. Wei Kai laughed and waved his hands quickly. Forget it about the contract of heaven and other things. I can only tell you its effect. Then tell me more specifically. Tian Xiaoling was not surprised. The other party didn't want to say it, and she didn't want to force it. After all, we have only known each other for a short time, how can we believe it so easily? My talent has only one effect, which is to increase the explosion rate of monsters. When you are lucky, it can reach 20%. Wei Kai said simply. Real. Tian Xiaoling was stunned at first, and then suddenly realized, no wonder you can get so many recipes. The explosion rate of 20% is too scary. After saying that, she couldn't help but smile bitterly. The explosion rate of other people's monster spawning generally does not exceed 1%, the explosion rate of some rare items is even pitifully low. As a result, the talent of this guy in front of me can actually increase the explosion rate to 20%. This is too scary. Of course, if she knew that Wei Kai's talent was a 100% explosion rate, it might be more interesting. So, what are the things in this backpack that you found in the afternoon? Tian Xiaoling asked again. Well, basically, Wei Kai nodded, including those elixir fragments. Tian Xiaoling continued to ask. When he heard the words, spiritual medicine crumbs, Wei Kai suddenly jumped up and looked up at the other party. Don't get excited. When Tian Xiaoling saw this, she immediately smiled and said, this thing is not a secret to us. You. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment. Yes, us. Tian Xiaoling pointed to herself and then to the ceiling, meaning the person above her. In other words, the top officials have known about this stuff for a long time, but they never told ordinary people. Wei Kai suddenly frowned and said displeased in his heart. Because it's not necessary. Tian Xiaoling sighed and said, the explosion rate of this thing is extremely low. Even if the government takes action, they can only get 3 of them over the years. How many shards do it take to make one? 100 pills. Tian Xiaoling stretched out a finger, and then sighed, but you actually have 51 pills here. To be honest, if I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I wouldn't have believed it. Forget about other things, he can easily explode even things as difficult as elixir fragments. This explosion rate is simply incredible. If there was no way to forcefully check the opponent's attributes, Tian Xiaoling would now want to strip the opponent naked and check his attributes and talents. Then what's the use of it? Wei Kai asked doubtfully. Listening to the other party's tone, the effect of this thing seems to be very powerful. Even if the official came forward to collect them, only 300 copies were collected over the years, and a total of 3 were synthesized. It can provide a skill point. Tian Xiaoling explained. Skill points, such a good thing. Wei Kai was stunned for a moment and asked quickly, is there no upper limit? It's a beautiful thought. Tian Xiaoling smiled slightly. Each person can take up to 10 pills. The 3 officials received were given to the god of war Li Chengyuan, the king of support Wang Li, and the idol alchemist Lu Yutian of the life professionals. Wei Kai was stunned by the other party's answer. Each of the 3 names she mentioned are famous figures in the Dragon Kingdom. Just from their names, you can tell that they are extraordinary. These 3 people can be said to be the top existences among those who have changed jobs in the Dragon Kingdom. It is also the pillar of the Dragon Kingdom. It is precisely because of their existence that the Dragon Kingdom was able to quell the chaos and restore order within the first 3 years. If it weren't for them, the current situation of the Dragon Kingdom would probably not be much better than that of the beautiful country that was torn apart. A person with such outstanding achievements could only receive 1 elixir. This is too exaggerated. What, are you dumbfounded? Seeing his reaction, Tian Xiaoling immediately covered her mouth and smiled. If you are willing to hand over these elixir fragments in your backpack to the official, maybe you can get an official position. Of course, if you are willing to hand yourself over to the country, the reward will definitely be more generous. Let's forget it. Wei Kai refused without even thinking. He knows that with official help, his growth will definitely be smoother. There will be more treasures that can be obtained. But at what cost? The price is to become a tool for collecting treasures, and you no longer have any freedom. If you meet someone with selfish motives, you might be squeezed severely. He couldn't even refuse. Because he is not alone, he also has parents, classmates, brothers, these are all weaknesses. So you plan to rely on yourself? Tian Xiaoling asked. Yes. Wei Kai nodded, then looked at the other party. Thank you for your answer. After I collect 100 elixir fragments, I will give you 1 as a thank you. I don't dare ask for this. Tian Xiaoling quickly waved her hand and said, if you decide to rely on yourself, it will definitely be very difficult in the future. Just keep those elixirs for your own use. After saying that, she felt a little regretful, so she added, it won't be too late to give it to me when you really can't eat it anymore. Haha, very soon. Wei Kai smiled confidently. Right. Tian Xiaoling thought of something again and continued to ask, you bring so many things to the trading house, do you want to sell them? Well, I need money. Wei Kai said bluntly. If you need money, I suggest you just sell this one. Tian Xiaoling pointed to a touch of pink in her backpack and said calmly, this 9-turn large intestine recipe book can sell for at least 1 million gold coins, which is enough for you to use for a long time. What about the other materials? Wei Kai frowned slightly. He also knows that selling everything at once can easily attract others' attention. But he had no better way. With so many materials and equipment, you can't just keep them for yourself, right? Besides, there is expired meat in the backpack, and it will go bad if left for another day. If you trust me, I can help you deal with it. Tian Xiaoling said confidently. How to deal with it? Of course we will sell it. Tian Xiaoling smiled and said, but we will open the store ourselves. We open our own store. Wei Kai's mind suddenly couldn't turn around. Of course. Tian Xiaoling smiled and said, let's work together. You provide the supplies, I provide the store and manpower, and I am responsible for the management. How about opening a store and selling goods together? This. Wei Kai couldn't help scratching his head. To be honest, he really hadn't thought about such a thing. On the one hand, he has no capital and does not know how to open a store and sell goods. On the other hand, he didn't have time to do this. But in these two aspects, the other party can just make up for it. Tian Xiaoling is both the person in charge of this trading house and a salesperson at the official trading house next door, which shows that she has no shortage of connections and experience. As for shops, of course she has plenty at home. The most important thing is that she has enough time. We can sign a contract. If you are worried, you can also find a trustworthy person to come and help. Tian Xiaoling reminded. Then sign the contract. Wei Kai nodded. As for finding someone to help, forget it. No one he trusted knew anything about this, and even if he came over, they wouldn't be able to help him much. If Tian Xiaoling wants to trick him, there are many ways to bypass other people. I'm curious, why do you want to open a store in partnership with me? Because you have this ability. Tian Xiaoling said bluntly. You can get so many materials and equipment in half a day, which shows that your talent is strong enough. With your stable supply, the store will not have to worry about running out of things to sell in the future, and it will have low, medium and high-end goods, and it will target a wider range of customers. The most important thing is that by opening our own store we can avoid being exploited by profiteers. Don't you think the recipes in the trading house are too expensive? If you open your own shop, you can make a lot of money even if you only sell 100,000 gold coins. Ah, Wei Kai was stunned when he heard this and pointed to the ceiling above his head. But, doesn't this trading house belong to your family? My family is also a profiteer. Tian Xiaoling shrugged and said angrily. I just couldn't stand their behavior, so I went to work as a salesperson next door. After hearing this, Wei Kai was convinced on the spot. There is also a person who personally admits that his family is a profiteer. He is indeed a well-known hero. That's all I'll say. Seeing that he remained silent, Tian Xiaoling spoke again. If you sell this 9-turn large intestine recipe to my family, you can only sell it for 1 million gold coins at most. But the price my family sells it for is at least 3 million. Above, if you meet someone who takes advantage of you, you might be able to sell it for 5 million. Hiss. Wei Kai took a breath of cold air when he heard it. It was too dark. He is indeed a profiteer. Do you know how evil my family is? Seeing his reaction, Tian Xiaoling immediately became happy, so she hit the rails while the iron was hot. You only got a quarter of the price for the equipment you worked so hard to acquire, and most of it was taken away by profiteers. Are you willing to do it? Actually, it's not that hard. Wei Kai whispered. Quote. Tian Xiaoling suddenly choked and curled her lips and said, I don't care if you work hard or not, that's what it means anyway. If we open our own store, we can make as much money as we sell. It can also save customers some money, so that more people can afford it and use it. Didn't you say before that the cookbooks are too expensive? If we open our own store, even if we only sell 100,000 copies, we will make a pure profit. It can also benefit customers. But, wouldn't this make us and your family competitors? Wei Kai asked softly. That's why I need to step forward. Tian Xiaoling patted Shanshan's undulating chest and said, as long as I'm here, my family can't do anything to you. And I can also use my family's connections and connections. That being said, why do you feel like you are eating everything inside and out? Wei Kai scratched his head and said doubtfully, I still don't understand something. You asked, why are you helping me? This is not helping you, it is also helping me. Tian Xiaoling took a deep breath and said seriously, we open a store together, and I also have to share the money. That's no problem. Wei Kai directly agreed. We'll open on May 5th. Although talking about money hurts feelings, it is a partnership after all, and some things must be made clear. Otherwise, it will hurt your feelings even more in the future. As a partner, Tian Xiaoling is responsible for the operation and management of the store, as well as personal relationships. In the end, it is reasonable to share half of the profits. But, I can't take that much. When Tian Xiaoling heard this, she immediately shook her head. All the goods are provided by you. Without your goods, it is useless no matter how much I do, I only need 2 achievements. Is 20% too little? Wei Kai was a little speechless. Is there anyone who thinks the money is too much? A lot. Tian Xiaoling pointed to the ceiling above her head and said, do you know how much money my store can make in a month? I don't know. Wei Kai shook his head. How could he, a poor student, know such trade secrets? 10 million. Tian Xiaoling raised a finger and said, this is still when business is not good. If there are more sources of goods like you, it can be doubled several times. Quote exclamation mark exclamation mark exclamation mark quote. Wei Kai was speechless for a moment. At this moment, he suddenly remembered his parents' monthly salary of 3,000 yuan, and suddenly felt the differences in the world. You didn't expect that, did you? Tian Xiaoling said with a smile. Even if our store can only make half of that, it's still 5 million a month. If I get 2 cents, it's 1 million, which is enough to cover my 5 years' salary. But 20% is still too little. Wei Kai thought for a while and said directly, either 30% or 20% of the net profit after deducting all costs. You choose one yourself. Since it is a partnership business, the money that should be paid must be paid in full. Then 20% of the net profit. Tian Xiaoling thought for a while and replied readily, I hope we can have a happy cooperation. After saying that, she stretched out her right palm. Wei Kai understood immediately and also stretched out his right hand and gave the opponent a high five. A pleasure to work with. After saying that, he took off his backpack and handed it to the other party. That's all I'm bothering you with. No problem. Tian Xiaoling smiled sweetly, and then said, since we have our own store, we should not sell this 9 turns of large intestine to profiteers. Quote. Wei Kai was speechless and couldn't help but ask, could it be that you have a grudge against your family? No grudge, Tian Xiaoling said innocently. My family provides me with food, clothing, and education, so how can there be any hatred? Then you still sound like a profiteer. Wei Kai rolled his eyes and said, isn't it? Tian Xiaoling asked. Quote. There seemed to be some truth, but Wei Kai was speechless. Besides, I need money too. Tian Xiaoling said matter-of-factly. My family gives me 50,000 pocket money every month, which is not enough, otherwise I wouldn't go to work next door. 50,000 is not enough. Wei Kai's eyes suddenly widened. In the 3 years of high school, his total pocket money was less than 10,000. They have 50,000 a month. Sure enough, the gap between people is sometimes wider than that between dogs. I'm an enchanter. Tian Xiaoling sighed and said, this little money is not enough. Quote. Wei Kai was speechless. Enchanter, like alchemist and chef, is a kind of life occupation. The difference is that this profession is indeed very expensive, and people with no financial resources can't afford it. In other professions, even if you don't learn professional skills, you can still do other things and make extra money. For example, chefs can cook, alchemists can pick up garbage, recycle broken equipment to refine refined iron, and so on. But not the enchanter. Enchanters can only enchant equipment or items, but are almost useless beyond that. However, enchanting equipment requires not only a large amount of materials, but also corresponding enchanting orbs. Neither of these two things is cheap. This is one of the reasons why enchanters have become the most expensive profession. But, isn't your family very rich? Wei Kai asked back. Even if the enchanter needs a lot of money, your family can definitely afford it, right? Oh, I forgot to tell you that I have a younger brother. Tian Xiaoling sighed. Hearing this, Wei Kai suddenly realized. There is also a younger brother. Needless to say, all the family resources must be given to my younger brother. And he is also an extremely ice mage. Tian Xiaoling added. Now, Wei Kai had nothing to say. As a combat professional, you are naturally able to obtain more resources, let alone a noble master. The extreme ice mage is the advanced profession of the ice mage, which is rarer and more valuable to cultivate. As long as Tian Xiaoling's family is not a fool, they all know who to train. Seeing that Wei Kai didn't speak, Tian Xiaoling said to herself, besides, it doesn't matter how much money they make when you sell it to my family. If you sell it in our store, I can get at least 20%. Isn't this enough? That's okay. Wei Kai was immediately convinced by her. However, you should be in need of money now. Tian Xiaoling smiled and said, in this case, just sell 2 other cookbooks. I will help you deal with the rest, especially this 9-turn large intestine. Give me some time, I guarantee that sold 3 million gold coins. Good. Since she is already a business partner, Wei Kai naturally trusts her 100%. After saying that, He handed the backpack to the other party. After Tian Xiaoling took the backpack, she handed over her own backpack. Your backpack is still too small, use mine from now on. Ah, Wei Kai was stunned. Don't worry, my backpack is bigger than yours. Tian Xiaoling smiled and said, and there are no messy things, you can just use it. Okay, Wei Kai nodded. After a while, Tian Xiaoling completed the transaction procedures for the 2 cookbooks. At the same time, Wei Kai's bank card also had an extra 400,000 gold coins. Both books are barbecue cookbooks. According to today's market price, one copy can cost up to 100,000. But considering that today's cookbook market is very out of stock, I gave it 200,000 yuan for a copy. As for the price offered by Wei Kai, it was naturally rejected. In terms of transactions, Tian Xiaoling still distinguishes between public and private matters. Since it is sold to a trading house, it must be handled in accordance with the rules of the trading house. After all accounts of the trading house must be available to all responsible persons for inspection at any time. If she dares to act recklessly, she will not only harm herself, but also her family. This is why she doesn't want Wei Kai to sell things in the trading house. There are too many interests involved behind the trading house. After the transaction was completed, Wei Kai left with a new backpack. Tian Xiaoling walked out of the door personally and waved, "Little brother, come back next time." PFF'd. Wei Kai almost spit out a mouthful of water. It was already past 9 o'clock in the evening, and there was still less than an hour until the power was cut off. Wei Kai glanced at the time and immediately hurried home. His family lives in an underground city in Xixiang district, and the entrance is next to a subway station. After getting off the subway, Wei Kai took a long elevator ride before finally returning to the 13th underground floor. As soon as the elevator door opened, a short and thin figure appeared in his eyes, leaning against the wall briefly, as if waiting for something. Hearing the sound of the ladder, the figure immediately turned his head. "Brother Kai, you are back. Are you waiting for me here?" Wei Kai was a little surprised. He didn't expect that it was so late and the other party was still waiting here. "Well, my dad asked me to tell you something. You are not allowed to go back until you explain it clearly." Wu Yi smiled bitterly. What can't be said tomorrow? Wei Kai scratched his head, a little strange. Remember that recipe book with 400,000 gold coins? Wu Yi continued with a wry smile. Of course. Wei Kai nodded quickly. My dad bought it. Ah, Wei Kai suddenly opened his mouth wide, and his mind seemed to pause. Are you surprised? Wu Yi smiled bitterly. A few hours ago, Chong Lin and I were equally surprised. Uncle Peng spent 400,000 gold coins to buy you a recipe. Wei Kai pointed at the other party and then pointed in the direction of Wu Yi's house. Yeah, I didn't expect that my dad would be so willing. To be honest, I'm quite touched. Wu Yi's expression changed from a bitter smile to emotion. 400,000 gold coins. This is their family's entire savings. His father was willing to give it all, just to give him a better future. The feelings in it, the kindness is as heavy as a mountain. But, haven't you already learned the recipe? Wei Kai scratched his head and suddenly felt a little funny. According to this, the cookbook Uncle Peng bought might be one of the ones he sold at noon. If I had known that Uncle Peng would buy it, I might as well have given it to A directly. This is 400,000 gold coins, and he only earned half of it. The profiteers made 200,000 in vain. Well, my dad didn't expect it either. Wu Yi smiled bitterly and said, so my dad decided to return the cookbook tomorrow and give you the money. No, Wei Kai waved his hand and refused on the spot before the other party finished speaking. We are good brothers, so the little money is nothing. In my opinion, you might as well learn spicy rabbit meat. Wei Kai didn't wait for the other party to speak, and said, it's not too much anyway. For chefs, the more recipes they learn, the greater their effectiveness. For example, spicy rabbit meat can randomly increase some attributes after eating it. Barbecued meat can increase a little physical attack power after eating it. There are also braised pig's trotters, which can increase your agility after eating them. Although these foods can only be eaten once a day, if you eat more than a dozen kinds a day, it will add up to a considerable amount. Because of this, the more recipes a chef knows, the more food he can provide, and the more popular he will be. Ah, Wu Yi was stunned for a moment, but after thinking about it carefully, Brother Kai's words made sense. But, stop it. Wei Kai patted him on the shoulder and said, learn the spicy rabbit meat quickly and make me one. I haven't eaten it today yet. But I don't have rabbit meat at home. I have. Oh, right. After his reminder, Wu Yi finally reacted and hurriedly patted his head and said, Brother Kai, I have already prepared the barbecue you want. After that, he took out a handful of steaming barbecue skewers from his backpack. Wei Kai immediately sniffed and said with a smile, it smells so good. You have mastered it so quickly. It seems that you were born to eat this bowl of rice. After saying that, he took the meat skewers from the other party's hand and started eating them. Don't tell me, Wu Yi is indeed very talented in cooking. The grilled meat skewers are not only fragrant, but also tender on the outside and juicy on the inside. When you take a bite, you will find a crispy shell on the outside but tender and juicy meat on the inside. From the elevator entrance to Wu Yi's house, Wei Kai devoured a handful of meat skewers before he even entered. It would be even better if I had a bottle of beer. I'll buy it later, Wu Yi quickly answered. No need to bother. Wei Kai waved his hand quickly. The power will be cut off soon, so let's make the spicy rabbit meat first. Yeah, Wu Yi nodded repeatedly. After entering Wu Yi's house, Wei Kai discovered that Wu Yi's parents were still awake, and they were all sitting in the living room, seemingly waiting for them. Uncle Peng, Aunt Lu. Wei Kai quickly said hello. Wu Yi also took the opportunity to speak. Dad, Brother Kai said. After some explanation, Wu Yi explained Wei Kai's suggestions and his own thoughts. Wu Xiaopeng and Aunt Lu just listened quietly. After their son finished speaking, they both fell into deep thought. After a long time, Wu Xiaopeng nodded heavily, okay. Although he is not a chef, he also knows that the more recipes his son learns, the better. Only by mastering more recipes can we have more prospects. This is the case for Wu Yi's uncle. Relying on his Ma Po tofu, he has prospered in Shu and his life is much better than that of ordinary people. This is still only one recipe. If Wu Yi can learn 2 recipes, his future prospects will be even brighter. Then, I'm going to cook. After receiving his father's approval, Wu Yi was extremely happy. Well, go ahead, don't keep a Kai waiting too long. Wu Xiaopeng waved his hand and explained again. 10 minutes later, a fragrant and spicy rabbit meat was brought out. I'm not welcome. Wei Kai said something and started eating. It's not that he doesn't want to share, it's that he can't share. The food made by the recipe can only be eaten by one person alone, otherwise the attributes will not be obtained. For example, if you share a piece of the spicy rabbit meat in front of you with someone else, both of you will not be able to get attribute bonuses. Fortunately, there was still a lot of rabbit meat in his backpack, which Wei Kai had specially reserved for himself. I still have some rabbit meat here, please make a few more portions. No. When Wu Xiaopeng heard this, he quickly refused. It's useless for me to eat with you, Aunt Lu. Wu Xiaopeng also participated in the job change, but his occupation after the job change was that of a worker. Aunt Lu is even worse. She is a farmer by profession. These 2 professions can be said to be the lowest level in life professions. Not only are they huge in number, but their role is also very small, and they hardly play a big role in their own development. In other words, turning it means not turning it. For them, eating this kind of food that can increase attributes is a pure waste. Might as well keep it and sell it for money. How could it be useless? Wei Kai quickly retorted. With high attributes, it must be useful. After personally experiencing the 20-point full attributes of the novice legendary equipment, Wei Kai still has a strong say in the effect of the attributes. Increased strength attributes can not only increase muscles, but also strengthen physical fitness. The same goes for constitution and dexterity. There are also more magical spiritual and magical attributes, all of which have powerful effects. It's definitely not what Wu Xiaopeng said. It's useless. Wu Xiaopeng waved his hands stubbornly, and then saw that Wei Kai wanted to persuade him, so he changed his words. Then let Xiaoyi accompany you to have something to eat, and we will go to rest first. After saying that, he took his wife's hand and hurried back to the room. Seeing Wu Xiaopeng leaving in a hurry, Wei Kai had no choice but to do anything. So he turned to look at Wu Yi. Wu Yi was stunned for a moment, and then said, "Then I'll make a few more." After that, he went to the kitchen again. 10 minutes later, Wei Kai finally finished a portion of spicy rabbit meat, and a prompt came from the panel. Eat a portion of spicy rabbit meat and your physical fitness will be improved. Adding it to your physique. Not bad. Wei Kai was also able to accept this result. Anyway, there are many branches for warriors. No matter how many points you add, there will be corresponding professions, so there is no need to worry at all. At this moment, Wu Yi also walked out of the kitchen, holding 2 portions of prepared spicy rabbit meat. "Brother Kai, bring these 2 copies to your uncle and aunt." "My parents." "Yes, that's fine." Wei Kai did not hesitate. In the past, his family could not afford such expensive recipes. But it's different now. With the talent of all items dropping, he can not only improve himself rapidly, but also make his family live a better life. "You can have a portion too." After receiving 2 portions of spicy rabbit meat, Wei Kai said sincerely, "Attributes are really important and will be good for your future development." "Yeah, I listened to Brother Kai." Wu Yi nodded repeatedly. After leaving Wu Yi's home, Wei Kai returned to his home next door. It was already 10 o'clock, and my parents were still sitting in the living room watching TV, enjoying the last entertainment before the power went out. Hearing the sound of the door opening, the 2 of them looked over at the same time, and then smelled a unique spicy aroma. "Akai is back. What is it? It smells so good." Wei Yidong asked with a smile. "Eat the spicy rabbit meat that A gave me, or else the power will be cut off soon." Wei Kai handed over 2 portions of spicy rabbit meat and then ordered. When they heard that it was given by Wu Yi, the 2 of them started eating with confidence. "What's going on? My physique has increased a little." "Yeah, my strength has also increased a little." Bathroom. Wei Kai had just finished washing when he heard his parents' loud exclamations. Then, I heard my father calling again, "Akai, come out quickly." "What's going on? How come the attributes suddenly increase?" "Because it's made from a recipe." Wei Kai walked out of the bathroom with a smile and explained, "By the way, you don't know, right? Uncle Peng bought a cookbook specially for Yi." "Ah." Wei Yidong was stunned when he heard this answer. My mother Huang Liqiao was also quite surprised and asked hurriedly, "Will it cost a lot of money?" 400,000. Wei Kai stretched out his palm and gestured to the number 4. As soon as these words came out, Wei Yi and his wife were stunned. 400,000. Holy shit. Snap. As soon as he finished speaking, the lights and TV in the room went out at the same time. "The power is out." The 3 people reacted quickly and did not make a fuss. "Dad, Mom, I'm going to rest." Wei Kai quickly took the opportunity to escape. In the darkness, the couple was silent for a long time. In the end, Huang Chaoli couldn't help but say, "Old Wei, why do you think old Wu is willing to give up?" "For the sake of the children." Wei Yidong sighed. "Then should we also buy something for Akai?" Huang Chaoli asked. Wei Yidong thought for a while, nodded and said, "That's okay, I'll ask after get off work tomorrow." "Why are you waiting to get off work? Just ask for leave." "No, your salary will be deducted if you ask for leave." "What's that little salary?" Old Wu is willing to give up 400,000 gold coins. But what? Akai isn't your son," Huang Chaoli said and couldn't help but push her husband. "Akai is different from Xiaoyi. Akai is a combat profession, and I don't know what it requires." Wei Yidong quickly defended. "Go and ask," Huang Chaoli said. "If it doesn't work out, you can ask his class teacher." "Yes, then I'll ask tomorrow." The 2 discussed the matter and soon went back to the room to rest together. Early the next morning, Wei Kai was woken up by the alarm clock. There is no sun underground, so I rely on the alarm clock to remind me when to get up. Looking at the dark room, Wei Kai fumbled around for a while before finding the switch and turning on the light in the room. After a while, when his eyes adjusted to the bright environment, he slowly stood up. 10 minutes later, when Wei Kai walked out of the ground, the sky was still a little gray. It was just after 6 o'clock in the morning, and there was still half an hour before dark. But by this time the whole city had woken up. Whether they are combat professionals who are preparing to go out or other life professionals, they have all woken up from their sleep and started a busy day. Wei Kai had already gotten up early enough, but there were others earlier than him. That is Wu Yi. 3 minutes ago. Brother Kai, here are your barbecue and spicy rabbit meat. Thank you. Wei Kai nodded, took the 2 pieces of food, and then boarded the elevator to the ground. On the bus heading to the Combat Professional Guild, Wei Kai was eating delicious food while thinking about today's plan. After yesterday's leveling, he is now at level 4. According to the novice teaching, it is best to learn a campfire skill at this time, which is not only convenient for cooking in the wild, but also can deal with many emergencies. Of course, if you are a person who often forms teams, you don't need to learn this skill. As long as someone in the team knows this skill, it will be fine. But Wei Kai is a lone wolf and cannot form a team with others. The partners who can be trusted are basically life professionals, and there is no way to form a team with him. After 20 minutes, Wei Kai finally came to the Fighting Professional Guild and quickly learned the campfire skill. Afterwards, he got on the bus heading to the East City Gate. When the car arrived at the East City Gate, the night had passed and the whole world became brighter. The sun is shining, it's another fine day. After getting out of the car, Wei Kai went straight to the wild boar forest. Yesterday, he spent a long time brushing wild boars in the wild boar forest. Although he got a lot of good things, there was no substantial improvement for him. Of course, this is also related to the monsters he brushes. The 3rd level wild boar is, after all, a monster for novices to level up, and it is impossible to drop good equipment. The most valuable thing about the wild boar is the recipes. If it were someone else, let alone half a day, even if it was 3 or 5 days, he might not be able to get as much as him. However, a new day naturally brings new goals. Wei Kai's target today is those elite wild boars with entries. Not only are these elite wild boars 3 levels higher, they are also born with buffs, making them twice as difficult to kill as ordinary wild boars. If you are an ordinary novice, you would not dare to touch it at all. But for Wei Kai, the 20 points of full attributes brought by the legendary novice suit made him full of confidence. 20 points of all attributes can basically make up for the level gap of 5 levels. Plus a little boost from the spicy rabbit meat in the morning, and a little kick from the grilled meat. Wei Kai is confident enough to challenge the elite wild boar alone. Just as he was thinking about it, a purple figure appeared in front of his eyes. Taking a closer look, it was an elite wild boar. Infinitely powerful. Seeing the entry on the wild boar's head, Wei Kai was stunned for a moment. How many attributes can be added to an entry? 10 points, or 20 points? Oh, ouch. While he was hesitating, the elite wild boar also discovered his traces and immediately charged towards him with a roar. Wei Kai suddenly frowned, but at this moment, a burst of excited shouts suddenly came from behind. Come on, there are elite monsters here, we're sending them out. As soon as he finished speaking, several voices responded. Come on, come on. Where is it? I'm very lucky today. I met an elite monster as soon as I came here. Ha ha ha, this is the benefit of being the first group to leave the city. In an instant, 5 or 6 people gathered around him. Although they saw Wei Kai, they didn't care. Instead, he took the elite wild boar as his own as a matter of course. Is this a grab for monsters? Wei Kai suddenly smiled, and his frown suddenly relaxed. This is a good thing. Just now he was still hesitating whether to fight this infinitely powerful, elite wild boar, but someone came to help him block it. Just as he was thinking about it, an exclamation suddenly came from his ears. I'm confused. Then he saw a soldier wearing heavy armor, who suddenly flew up. It flew for more than 3 meters before falling to the ground. I'm confused. Everyone else around was stunned. Everyone, be careful. The warrior who flew out, regardless of the pain on his body, reminded loudly, the power of this elite monster is so high, I can't stand it anymore. Isn't it? You can't even handle a level 6 full-strength warrior. Ouch, I'm flying. Taking advantage of everyone's daze, the elite wild boar launched another collision, knocking another person away on the spot. This time, the person who was hit flew farther and fell harder. He was seriously injured on the spot. Heron, moisten it first. When Wei Kai saw this, he turned around and left on the spot. After a while, Wei Kai finally found a secluded place. Then I recalled the situation just now and secretly felt happy. A 6th level warrior, regardless of the base strength. In terms of the strength that increases by 1 point per level and the 25 points of free attributes all added to the strength, there is at least 35 points of strength. With more than 35 points of strength, one can be hit by an elite wild boar and sent flying. This entry of infinite power was indeed not blown out. If that group of people didn't come out to block the gun for him, Wei Kai alone might not be able to deal with that elite wild boar. With only 29 points of strength, he couldn't withstand the collision of the elite wild boar. Of course, there is no solution at all. After all, with more than 20 points of all attributes in the legendary novice outfit, Wei Kai could rely on his agility and strong physique to slowly wear out the elite wild boar. But in that case, the efficiency of killing monsters will be low. Let's change the target. Anyway, there are a lot of elite monsters in the forest. Wei Kai smiled and immediately went to find the next target. Soon, a figure appeared in the bushes ahead. It was an elite wild boar. A nimble boar. Seeing the entry on the head of the elite boar, Wei Kai suddenly burst into laughter. To him, as long as it's not infinitely powerful, everything else doesn't matter. Oh, ouch. Just as he was thinking about it, the elite wild boar immediately rushed over with a roar, faster than the previous one. Oh, you are indeed agile. Wei Kai smiled, immediately pulled out his novice sword and pointed it at the wild boar that was charging towards him. Top pick. The tried and tested method of spawning monsters appears again. The next moment, the wild boar was carried away as expected. But the next scene left Wei Kai stunned and dumbfounded on the spot. I saw that the wild boar was scratching with its limbs before it landed on the ground. After landing, he rolled around like a lazy pig and stood up immediately as if nothing happened. Seeing this scene, Wei Kai immediately widened his eyes. Ah, you can still do Qinggong. After a moment, he remembered the entry on this elite wild boar. It seems that even a pig can fly as long as its attributes are high enough. Thinking of this, Wei Kai couldn't help but smile bitterly. It can only be said that elite monsters are elite monsters, and it is not nonsense to kill them twice as hard. If you still want to use the previous methods of dealing with ordinary wild boars, I'm afraid it won't work. Then let's go head to head. Wei Kai shouted and rushed forward, giving the elite wild boar that had just stood up a move that was not about martial ethics, sneak attack. What followed was a series of smooth combos. Top pick. A flat A. A flat A. Cut down. Top pick. With his strong strength, Wei Kai took away half of the elite wild boar's blood in just half a minute. Just when he wanted to take advantage of the victory, the elite wild boar rushed over again with a roar. Well done. This is Wei Kai's favorite trick for wild boars that are smaller than him. It's like delivering food to your door. Top pick. After sending the wild boar flying with one move, he immediately ran over and launched a sprint to level A before the wild boar landed, followed by a set of smooth small combos. Hold head high. After a while, the elite wild boar finally couldn't stand the torture and collapsed on the spot. Just as the wild boar's body disappeared, a pink light emerged from it. It exploded again. Along with the pink light falling, there were more than a dozen white and blue rays of light, but Wei Kai ignored them and focused all his eyes on the pink light. Judging from the appearance, it is a piece of equipment. He swept away the fallen objects without hesitation, and then examined them carefully. Boar boots, legendary, light armor. Level 5. Agility, 15. Movement speed plus 10. When sprinting, gain 5 points of strength bonus can be superimposed. One of the wild boar charge sets, which can achieve powerful effects when collected together. The attributes of this legendary equipment seem a bit unremarkable. The increased agility attribute and 10 points of movement speed are very ordinary. But the skills attached to it made Wei Kai's eyes light up. Increase strength when sprinting. Isn't this the wild boar's charging skill? 5 points of strength may seem like a small amount, but don't forget that it stacks. And this is a suit. If other parts also have this skill, once 5 pieces are collected, wouldn't it be equivalent to a 5-fold increase? That is, you can increase your strength by 25 points when sprinting. When he thought of this, Wei Kai suddenly laughed. If he could collect this suit, he would still be worthy even if he collided with the infinitely powerful elite wild boar. As expected of an elite monster, the explosive equipment is amazing. Wei Kai chuckled and quickly put the piece of equipment away. He hasn't reached level 5 yet, so he can't wear it yet. Before he collected the suit, he had no intention of changing out of the novice suit. After all, this novice suit could provide 20 points of basic attributes. If there is only one piece, the wild boar boots are not as good as this set. After looking at the powder, Wei Kai took a look at the other drops and found that they were not much different from ordinary wild boars. They are all blue and white equipment and materials, and there are no recipes. It seems that this pig only has one pink suit on it. However, the elixir fragments still fell. Seeing this thing, Wei Kai thought of what Tian Xiaoling said last night. If you collect 100 pills, you can synthesize a magical elixir. There are already 52 pills now. If we work harder, we may be able to synthesize them today. Then continue. Wei Kai did not rest and continued to search in the forest. After a full 10 minutes, he found a familiar purple figure under a big tree. Powerful wild boar. Hey, it turns out to be a magic entry. Seeing this elite entry, Wei Kai couldn't hold himself any longer. You are just a pig. No matter how high your magic power is, can you still shoot lightning? Thinking of this, he immediately charged and hit the elite wild boar. Facts have proved that his guess was very accurate. The wild boars with magic entries are no different from ordinary wild boars except that they have a slightly higher level and slightly more blood. He only used the simplest move, flying, to send the opponent flying, and then immediately made a few more blows. Not only did this wild boar complete its mission in half a minute. Then the explosion continued. Another flash of pink caught Wei Kai's eyes. Boar helm, legendary, light armor. Level 5. Magic, 15. Perception plus 10. When sprinting, gain 5 points of strength bonus can be superimposed. One of the wild boar charge sets, which can achieve powerful effects when collected together. Okay, I got another suit. Wei Kai suddenly burst into laughter. If this trend continues, as long as you farm a few more elite wild boars, you will soon be able to complete this set. At that time, we can see how powerful the effect of the suit is. I hope everyone will support it and subscribe more.